Wake the fuck up, samurai. We've got a city to burn.
Hey, baby. Give me a kiss.
Hello lads and chads, I have a question for you, the viewer. Do you enjoy dystopian society? Do you enjoy artificially induced instant gratification? Are you a part of the generation that's going to look into the night sky one day and see drones forming coke ads over your mass-produced, overpriced apartment complexes? Do you enjoy watching pieces of media that can offer you even the faintest glimpse into where society is heading?
Bro, what?
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Do you ever wonder just how much more fucking worse it's going to get? Well, my children, I've got just the game and TV show for you. Let me take you into a somehow even more dystopian California society, where Nintendo controls half the fucking known world and 68% of the population is homeless.
Right.
The homeless population in Night City has risen by 300%. The NCPD has announced that it will soon launch a sweeping catch and release program to relocate the
Big bastard.
outside city limits.
Cyberpunk 2077 is a game you're probably already familiar with, whether you were one of the unfortunate souls that pre-ordered the game,
Getting caught.
you remember Reddit using the funny man in the game trailers to make the worst fucking memes in human history, or because you've seen the anime with a similar name. It came out, albeit extremely unfinished. Everyone played it for a little bit, took a big steaming shit on it, and then just kinda moved on. And then this happened, and it was really good. So the collective genius consumers who have never played Cyberpunk 2077 got a bright idea. Hey, this game's been out for more than 3 years. Surely by now they've fixed all of the bugs, and the game is actually playable. Surely now I can live out my power fantasy of being a cop-dodging, drug-smuggling, cyberpunk-esque criminal and mass serial killer that is so fucking tripped out on transhuman body modifications and hard drugs that his immune system no longer works. I know, I'll buy the game. It'll be just like Edgerunners. I, unfortunately, was one of the poor souls tricked by the anime into giving the Polish $30. I really did have high hopes for this game, as did most people that came from Edgerunners.
What in the fuck?
Yeah, that's my reaction too, to be honest.
I figured, hey, it's been 3 years since this shit dropped. Surely they've fixed it up, right?
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Now I want to preface because it's going to seem a lot like I'm trying to violently rip into this game. But I actually do not think Cyberpunk is a bad game. I just think that this game had a lot of poor creative decisions and too early of a deadline, and it resulted in an unpatchable, neutered, disappointing experience. Like what your parents say after in 3rd grade you kicked a kid that's been an asshole to you for the last few weeks in the crotch as hard as physically possible, resulting in you getting 3 weeks of in-school suspension.
I'm not mad, son. I'm just disappointed. What? What? Okay. Okay, that's fine. This game's physics are outstanding, honestly. What the fuck? Why the fuck did a Toyota Corolla just fall out of the fucking sky? There was a grenade in that children's backpack. Fucking 10 out of 10 gaming experience, honestly. Cyberpunk 2077 may very well be one of the damn most aesthetically pleasing games of all time. I guarantee you that the decade they spent developing this game was almost entirely spent on designing the world and commissioning an entire catalog of musicians to produce music that fits the aesthetic of the game. Cyberpunk does an amazing job of immersing you in its incredible futuristic metropolitan life, which is why it's so goddamn jarring and immersion breaking whenever characters start T-posing mid-cutscene and people on the street look like 3rd-degree burn victims for approximately 5 seconds before the game realizes that you're looking at them.
Why did you face Silver Papa?
But we'll get to that later. For now, the first thing you have to worry about is the character selection screen, and whichever slimy Russian man is going to give you your first mission. You play as V, the future scourge of Night City. hell-bent on shooting up as many nightclubs as physically possible, and toppling one of the biggest corporations in human history. Now you can pretend V stands for something gay like Vincent or Valerie, or you can do what alpha males do, and pretend it stands for the Roman numeral 5, and then proceed to roleplay as the famous Metal Gear character, Gigantic General. I am not an alpha male, so I decided to make my character look exactly like my real-life person. Then after crafting your pure genetic specimen, you choose what pathway you start off with. You can either be a nomad, a Mad Max-style scavenger sifting through knee-high trash in the middle of Death Valley, the street kid, the tough ruffian who's lived his entire life in Night City being harassed by the homeless, and has a diet consisting of entirely synthetic meat.
You, got any real meat back there?
You mean from animals? Don't be ridiculous.
Or the Corpo, one of Nintendo's personal goons, hell-bent on securing the bag at all means. Here's one of my big criticisms with Cyberpunk 2077. The game is really good at giving you the illusion of choice. There is not even a reason for not killing someone when you sneak up on them. Our karma system for this game is entirely non-existent. No matter what dialogue you pick, you still get 90% of the same outcomes as the other options. Literally, the only thing these do long-term is unlock new dialogue options that literally do not affect gameplay fucking whatsoever. Cyberpunk has a really fucking hard time differentiating between a linear story and an open-world RPG. It tries to do what Metal Gear Solid 5 did, where it's a linear story, but the missions take place in a large open sandbox world, but there is literally no point in trying to design the game this way, since almost every encounter plays out very linearly and almost exactly the same. The open world aspect of this game almost feels like if the RPG mechanics of Fallout 4 had a kid with the open world enemy encounters of Far Cry 3, but the kid was one of those horribly disfigured ones that the Spartans would throw off a cliff. A huge and essential part for designing an open world game is filling the world itself with things to do, such as random encounters, side quests, etc. Open world games are supposed to make you feel like a part of the world, not the world itself. For such a large, expansive, and amazingly detailed world, it is neglected by the complete nothingness there is to do.
Max level?
For your own safety, please maintain silence.
This was behind the max level door? I'll make you my fish! Time for a bloodbath!
Fiend, what the hell were you thinking?
Just killing the leaders of the Mafia, I guess. I don't really know.
Matter of fact, I do. Either you walk away and never come back to Clouds, or I end you here and now.
I see you got everything planned out, but you forgot just one thing. I've also got a doll chip.
That was generally the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my whole life. That's unfortunate. She was kind of hot.
In my first playthrough of the game, I genuinely did not encounter a single random event. The only thing remotely close to random encounters are just the gang encampments and clubs you can shoot up, which just feels like it's taken a little bit too much inspiration from the Far Cry series. Oh, and the gangs? You can't interact with them either. You know how in most RPG games, NPCs from factions don't normally attack you unless you've done something to piss off those factions? In Cyberpunk, it doesn't work like that. In Cyberpunk, they will just see you walking down the street and go, yeah, fuck this guy in particular, and attempt to turn you into a bloody pile of mulch. It's unfortunate too, because just adding a basic karma system to this game would have added so much to world building and things to do. Like the Maelstroms, whose base you shot up to get the Militech drone for Dexter, treat you exactly the same as the gangs you've never interacted with before in your entire life. It is a colossal missed opportunity that you can't recruit yourself into these gangs and take hit jobs in other gangs.
Sorry you got twisted up in this scene. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
as that would have added so much replayability, as for example, in one playthrough you could have been good chums with the Scorpion gang, but that would cause various other street gangs in the area to be hostile towards you. This would give you the reason to replay the game and see what you missed out on. Imagine if preemptively before going and getting the Militech drone for Dex, you did a few side quests for the Maelstroms and got your reputation up with them, so they would give it to you without having to shoot up the entire bunker, or going and getting the chip from the Maelstrom lady. Like, that's just one quest they could have added multiple non-linear outcomes. Imagine if they did what Fallout New Vegas did and implement that for almost every single quest. CD Projekt Red went out of their way to make a replayable game with all these alternate pathways and shit, but if they had just given their players a little bit more freedom and made the game more of an actual open world game, a creative decision like this would have inherently added so much more to gameplay and replayability, it's depressing. And the driving is, not stellar, to say the least. You could be driving 180 fucking miles per hour down the highway and slam into a building, and your car will receive minimal damage. The handling of most cars in the game also feels really unnatural. Some cars can make a 90-degree turn in 3 seconds, and most motorcycles take about 6. That doesn't make sense. Cars also do not shield you from bullets outside of story missions whatsoever, and I feel like the reasoning why is because despite making a game about being a cop-dodging cyberpunk, not a single cop in the entire game will get into another car and actually chase you. So to not make cars overpowered blocks of tungsten, they just made it so the enemies can shoot you through the steel frame of your sports car.
Oh, that's real nice.
Hey buddy, what are you doing there? You know mate, spray painting on the wall is actually very illegal. Fuck's sake. One aspect of the game I actually do quite like is the incorporation of cybernetic mods. By doing side missions and side gigs, you earn street cred. The more street cred you have, the more inhuman cybernetic mods you can cram into your body. Now you can do what weak-chinned Marvel movie connoisseurs do by doing a David Martinez build, or you can do what testosterone-oozing Sigma males do and go and buy the Mantis blades. Do you want to LARP as a Tesco discount chainsaw man? Do you just want to left-click and instantly jump across an entire football field and cut anyone in front of you into 1,000 pieces? Well, let me introduce you to the Mantis Blades, which are genuinely the best weapon in the entire game. So now no longer will drunken, psychosis-ridden homeless men with guns be an issue. You can either buy cybernetics from a Ripper doc, forcefully rip them out of dead cyber psychos, or you can raid Russian snuff film crack dens to find some more, which you can later get implemented at a Ripper doc. Seriously, these things are so much fun and add so many new ways to tackle objectives, it's not even funny. There's an idea of a Liam versus society, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me. Only an entity, something illusory. And although I can hide my cold gaze and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there.
Why? Why can't I talk to her?
Because Mom got really sick and had to leave. But I know she's watching you from on high and that she loves you very much.
Another busted way of playing the game is by speccing into hacking. If you go to a Ripper dock and replace your Standevistan with a RAM chip, depending on the size and power of the chip, that depends how many quick hacks you can hold. Now here's what you do. Get 17 in intelligence, and then get the perk that makes enemies unaware of you receive 50 to 100% more damage from quick hacks. Then go and buy Short Circuit. Then enjoy sitting in a room, holding the tab button, and melting the brains of random street thugs. The The cyberware in this game has a large missed opportunity with the whole cyberpsycho element. For those who don't know, when you go cyberpsycho, it's because you have too many cybernetic implants for your body to handle, and this mixed with some form of emotional distress could cause you to go cyberpsycho. I wish this game had some form of cyberpsycho feature where if you use your implants too frequently, you go cyberpsycho or something like that then later have to take some form of immunoblocker to lose the effect. You know, maybe give the game's consumables a fucking use. While cyberpsycho, I figured you could do something like 3 times more crit damage, but you also are a lot more susceptible to damage taking or something of that sort. Maybe you'd get the max tech units called on you and you'd have to fight them as well. It could have also helped a lot with the weapon balancing. For example, once you hit level 20, if you're doing a melee build, after you get the Gorilla Fests, you really have no use for any other melee weapons. Well, other than the dildo, of course. Overall, cyberware is still a pretty neat aspect of the game. My only complaint is there aren't more implants.
Or I'll make sure you never forget.
That was pretty pathetic, I'm not gonna lie.
One aspect of the gameplay I'm not a fan of, however, is the turrets and trip mines. I have no fucking idea why, but the balancing of this game's weapons are non-existent. Let me explain. In the late game, most enemies will take a substantially longer time to kill you once you've leveled up a bit. It takes on average 1 to 2 whole magazines of whatever weapon they're using to kill you. With turrets and trip mines, however, it doesn't matter what fucking level you are, no matter how beefy your late game V is, these fucking things will kill you in 1 to 2 shots. Lay down your arms, puny mortals, whenever the enemy has more than 2 turrets. I'm not joking when I say this. The multi-billion-dollar mass-produced Arasaka mech suits are 16 times easier to kill than turrets, and no matter what range or distance you are away from them, will always instantaneously 1 to 2 hit kill you. There is also no power scaling with enemies whatsoever in this game, which, might I add, isn't inherently a bad thing. Games like Fallout New Vegas did a good job of this by putting the more powerful enemies in more very specific parts of the world, but it makes no fucking sense that the same random thugs on the street with the same guns, armor, and abilities of you for some reason take 5 times more firepower to kill. You can fix this with mods, and I highly encourage you to do so. Otherwise, the game is unbelievably hard on higher difficulties. I have no clue what CD Projekt Red were thinking by walling off a lot of the game's already almost non-existent content until you're a certain level, but I digress. Your guns and weapons don't also level up with you either. Did you find a gun that you really like with cool bonus stats? Sorry mate, this common SMG you picked up from a dead homeless man has better stats than it, and if you don't use that same weapon because it's more powerful, enjoy getting 2-hit killed by not only the turrets and trip mines, but the normal enemies as well. I wish they did something like what Destiny did, where you can infuse a weapon you really like with another more powerful one, so you can keep using that same weapon. You know, maybe actually give players a fucking reason to use all of those item components other than slightly leveling up your weapon each time. But you can have gay butt sex in this game, so I'm willing to let this slide.
The game also has a wardrobe, just in case you got tired of looking like a randomly generated Sims character, which was added to the game in the 1.6 patch, and let me tell you, it was much needed. Now you actually get to make your character look like a cyberpunk instead of an Arkham Asylum escapee. I'm not joking when I say this. For some reason, the developers thought dressing like a fucking transvestite should give you better protection than futuristic combat Kevlar. Why this wasn't apparently a feature when the game first dropped, I genuinely have no idea.
I feel like for a game that's so keen on keeping you immersed in the world, a lot of the little details that add to those experiences are just completely missing. Like, watch this cutscene.
There. First class merch.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything's in order?
Check your account.
Doesn't something feel a little bit off? Don't you feel like there's something here that the whole experience is just lacking? Ahem. That's because there's no fucking sound effects. I'm aware this may seem to a lot of people, especially the die-hard cyberpunk defendees, like an absolutely absurd bit of criticism, and truth be told, it kind of is. But most cutscenes in this game just feel unfinished due to how dead the air is in a lot of them. Some cutscenes have sound effects that don't need to be there, and some are missing a lot of little details that make it feel incredibly rushed. To be fair, they most likely were. Cutscenes and dialogue are also the most glitchy and bug-riddled parts of the game. I have no idea why, but for some fucking ridiculous reason once in a while entering cutscenes, my computer will just entirely brick itself. This happens a lot in the normal gameplay, but it's primarily in cutscenes. Now this could be because of my computer itself, and yes, I'm not pretending to have the best computer ever, but it's hard to at least not feel like this game is poorly optimized when you can play Red Dead 2 and Sea of Thieves and Payday 2 all at max settings, and Cyberpunk averages 50 FPS while in the middle of nowhere with the graphics at low.
Well, there goes my footage.
Oh, and one more thing. It truly wouldn't be a Cyberpunk video without at least mentioning one of the still hundreds of prevalent bugs. So I'm not gonna make a big segment all about the glitches I came across in my few playthroughs, because that's been done to fucking death. But I will say that after 3 years of continuous patches, this game still has a lot of immersion-breaking bugs. Like somehow, while I was doing the mission where you drive around in Panam's armored truck, a fucking cactus was just growing out of the front of the car. How the fuck does this even happen? Where in the rudimentary code did they cock something up that somehow managed for something like this to even fucking happen? Like, don't get me wrong, the devs have done an absolutely outstanding job in fixing up the game from what it was originally like. There's no longer any glitches that physically won't let you complete quests. Most bugs at worst just ruin your immersion, or are more haha buggy than actually detrimental to the game itself. Congratulations, CD Projekt Red. You have now made a game worthy of your $60.
Now, I've talked a lot about the bugs I've experienced with the other people who have played Cyberpunk, and about all of them have told me that they never experienced any bugs at all.
I can't. Why can I not press?
What the fuck? Why is your game like this, dude?
I told. This is like the 50th. Okay, you know what? This glitch has happened before. You know how I fix it?
In total shock, I decided to do some research. I discovered that the quality and power of your computer could actually affect gameplay in certain games. So I decided to waste $2,000 on new PC parts for the sake of this video. I quickly discovered that despite buying the product new from Amazon, someone had bought it before me, taken the graphics card out, and replaced it with drill bits that weighed about the same as the GPU.
He sent me fucking... I don't want to break this shit, so I can't get it. They sent me wrench sockets.
Open the box just to prove it, bro.
Oh my gosh.
After getting Amazon to give me back my fucking money and give me a proper GPU, I can safely say this game's overall experience is about 6 times better. Quite frankly, that's not saying much, considering every game is better when you have a monster rig, but we'll keep our poor underpaid Polish devs a point for this one. This game's Steam page says you can play it with specs as low as a 970 and 8 gigs of RAM, but I'm willing to bet that is genuinely misinformation. My old PC was an RTX 1660 with 16 gigs of RAM. No serious rig for sure, but an average one, and consistently getting at most 55 to 60 FPS with the graphics at low and the ray tracing off. I cannot wrap my head around how someone with a 970 could even boot up the game. If someone with an average industry standard computer can't play your game as intended, it's just poorly optimized. God bless the poor Chinese children in the Nvidia factories supplying me with GPUs that can run Cyberpunk's ray tracing. So now whenever I'm crushing in the skulls of Japanese mobsters, at least I'm getting accurate lighting.
Cyberpunk is a very interestingly written game. The lore and the overall story of the game is genuinely amazing, but the writing itself and how they go about structuring the game itself definitely isn't as flawless or intricately written. The characters themselves have a range of how much you actually give a shit about them and how much you're actually supposed to give a shit about them. Let me explain. Jackie as a whole is somewhat nicely written, his voice acting is amazing, and his character design is pretty cool. It took me 30 hours to figure out he wasn't Hispanic mixed, but that's besides the point. Jackie is a trivial character to the first part of the story, and is presented as an almost brother-like character. You're supposed to give a shit about him, but when he died, it wasn't as impactful as the death of someone like Johnny, whose backstory you actually played through. Also because the biochip was fucking invisible in the cutscene. What they should have done with the game's tutorial, instead of just cramming you in this big empty gray box, was let you play through some of the earlier missions with Jackie, where you're doing side gigs and beating people's heads in. This would have exponentially added to the pacing of the game and actually given you a reason to give a shit about Jackie, and also allow you to naturally learn the game's mechanics at your own pace instead of having it hand-fisted down your esophagus, as you'd actually have felt like you've been there with him the whole time. I also personally wish other characters like Pan Am got more character exposition instead of just, sex appeal.
Hey, been thinking a lot about things, about the shit with Soul, about Mitch and Scorpion, about the family he had, lost, left, adopting. Didn't know it'd be this fucking complicated. You don't get what's happening to me. I'm in this city, free to do whatever.
Like, don't get me wrong, King. I'd love to lick the sweat off of her dirty abs as much as you. But unless you actually go do a few more of her missions that are off the beaten path, all you know about her is that she drives around in the desert in this big over-the-top truck and used to be a part of a gang of nomads. Out of any character in the entire game, however, I think Takamura was definitely my favorite. I thought his whole revenge trope against Yorinobu Akasaka for killing his own father and getting Takamura fired was pretty cool and nicely written. As the game goes on and you do more missions with him, he almost becomes this Mr. Miyagi-like character that you have pretty funny conversations with.
It seems no one is here today.
Have you guys ever seen that fucking scene from Get Out where he like runs at the camera?
I think Johnny was definitely one of the more better characters in this game. I was expecting him to be this annoying twat that would just pop in and talk shit about you for a few minutes before going back to the gameplay, which he was at the start, but he actually has a really good character trope. As the game goes on, you start to build a mutual understanding for his character and learn why he has such a massive hate boner for Nintendo. Johnny Silverhand may very well be the most normal person in this entire fucking game. I'm sure if I lived in a universe like this, I'd be a fucking terrorist myself.
Johnny, pretty sure they turned your great spot into a slurp shop.
Mindless fucking consumerism wins the day again.
Imagine this.
You piss off already!
You're in a car accident, badly injured, and as you're lying sprawled out on the concrete and tarmac road, a paramedic comes and stands over you. He takes a glance at his tablet and merely says he doesn't have insurance, then leaves you to die on the cold, hard ground. Would this not awaken some sort of primal proletariat hatred on the inside? Perhaps a hatred for big corporations responsible for it? I love this game's lore. It's also what makes this game's TV show called Edgerunners. This may very well be one of the best advertisements I have ever seen. When the Cyberpunk anime was announced back in June of 2020, people just kind of went, oh, okay. Yeah, truth be told, no one really gave a flying shit about it. Wait, this isn't being animated by CG Projekt Red, is it? Wait, who's animating? Holy shit, it's Trigger Studio! See how the anime came out, and people started losing their collective shit over it, and rightfully so. Edgerunners violently rips out the story from Cyberpunk and makes it into a much more digestible, investing, and much better written piece of content that everyone, including the people who haven't even played the game, can enjoy. Mostly because TV shows don't have a million fucking bugs. Characters and the world building are just... oh! Edgerunners completely succeeds in trying to tell the story that the actual game struggled to do. You can tell that the people who made this actually gave a shit about what they were making. Look at the way they draw the lighting on these characters. This isn't done by someone who hates their life. This is drawn by someone who genuinely cares about what they're trying to make. Every character has so little exposition, but you can tell so much about them from just how they look and act alone. Like boom, 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 boom. I've just shown you 5 characters and you can already just tell so much about them. It's genius, because for people who haven't played the game, everything will look new and fresh, something they've never seen before. And for the people that have, they'll recognize it and realize where it took place. Like seeing all the main characters in places you've actually personally been to is so brilliantly thought out, as it adds a personal connection to the story. All of the walls and empty spaces of whatever room they're standing in have all these graffiti Brits everywhere, and trash and broken glass scattering the floor. You can tell that even for the singular frames in this anime, someone put so much thought and effort into designing them. And that's not even accounting for the main characters. David personally was a little rough around the edges for me at first, but as you give the show more time to give more exposition, you can't help but empathize with him and how the show goes on. You see him lose loved ones, you see him financially struggling because everything's been chipped and monetized, you see him not fitting in at school because he can't afford fucking kung fu brain chips.
You start to understand the way he became the way he is, and slowly watch his innocence be stripped away from him, or else he'll be swallowed up by Night City. God damn, that's good writing. Like, I hate everything. I will criticize media heavily for the most minute things ever. Hell, this video you're watching right now is living proof. I'm like that one stuck-up asshole from Ratatouille. Trust me, if I'm telling you something is good, it fucking slaps. But you want to know the downside? You want to know the sad reality of Edgerunners? The sad reality of Cyberpunk Edgerunners is that it gave us just a faint glimpse of what the game could have been like. If CD Projekt Red were allowed to finish their game fully and make as many creative decisions as they wanted, if the people that pre-ordered the game and the shareholders just sat back, shut their fucking mouths, and stopped acting like mindless children for a few seconds, maybe, just maybe, we could have gotten one of the best games of all time. I feel confident saying that after having played Cyberpunk, thoroughly scripting, writing, and editing this video, and spending over 100 hours playing it, it is genuinely one of the most disappointing video games of all time, even in its current state. This game is more depressing than Metal Gear Solid 5.
I couldn't wait for you to come and clear the cupboards. But now you're gone and leaving nothing but a sign. Another evening I'll be sitting reading in between your lines, because I miss you all the time. So get away, another way to feel what you do on yourself to know, and let yourself go. You know you do lose your self-control. There's snow under the rainbow. Turn away, another way to be where you do want yourself to go. Let yourself go. Is that a compromise? So what do you wanna do? What's your point of view? There's no price. Where do you wanna go? A handshake with you. What's your point of view? I want talk with you. I don't wanna go. 'Cause I really wanna stay at your house and balance your stuff. But you know how much you brought me all undone with you. I ain't done with you. I don't wanna know. So get away, another way to feel what you did on yourself to know, and let yourself go. You know you do lose yourself.
Don't make a name for yourself as a cyberpunk by how you live. Make a name by how you die.
So what do you want? What's your point of view? There's no price. Where do you wanna go? A handshake with you. What's your point of view? I want talk for you. I don't wanna go. 'Cause I really wanna stay at your house and balance your stuff. But you know how much you brought me all undone with you. I ain't done with you. I don't wanna know.
And with that, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. Thank you oh so very much for watching all the way to the end. Very few do that. Please consider sharing this video, as believe it or not, I actually spend a lot of time making these atrocities. My Patreon and PayPal donation links are in the description. If you would like your shitty account name at the end of my videos and access to a few other perks, please do consider checking them out. I live in the very same place that Cyberpunk is based off of, and I'm sure you can imagine what that's like. Video over. Auf Wiedersehen!
I think it's a really bold statement, but if you don't believe me, play our Witcher games. I really promise that we'll deliver a truly outstanding futuristic RPG, setting totally new standard in the genre, both in terms of the gameplay, but also on the tech side.
Yeah, I'm thinking.